Hello, SpyHards. It's your very own Miss Moneypenny, Catherine Vinclair here, with an exciting announcement. Agent Scott and I will be hosting a live screening of Thunderball at 2 p.m. on Saturday the 13th of December at the world-famous Riverside Studio Cinema in Hammersmith. Plus, after the screening, we'll be joined by Bond girl extraordinaire Martine Beswick to share her stories from behind the scenes of this 007 classic. She'll also be signing autographs and taking photos with fans. So if you want an early Christmas present, you know what to do. Tickets are limited, so make sure you grab yours now at the link in the show notes. See you there.
Hello and welcome to SpyHards Podcast, the world's greatest spy movie podcast, and we thank you for listening. I'm Agent Scott.
And I'm Cam the Provocateur. And Scott, where are you? Why do you hide?
Well, there's a lot of reasons.
Where is that moonlight trail that leads to your side?
I don't really want to explore the lyrics of this quite yet. It's actually one of the most baffling sets of lyrics of the Bond run. Have you actually read them through recently?
Yeah, I mean, I know this one pretty well.
Okay.
I mean,
right.
I think there's some. I mean, the famous line in Goldeneye about I watched you from the shadows as a child. That's maybe the strangest line.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, Man with the Golden Gun's pretty goofy, but I think we know what that means. Yeah, I do think Moonraker and that line in Goldeneye are maybe the weirdest Bond song lines.
Yeah, a bit of a weird one. I don't think they were firing on all cylinders, unfortunately, with the Moonraker song.
No, because it's what in the context of the song.
Yeah,
what is a Moonraker?
Yeah, it isn't talking about Moonraker as it was a base
or a shuttle
or a rocket, which it was in the book.
Yeah.
Well, we'll dig into that in just a few seconds because this film promises to take us to the stratosphere.
And beyond.
And beyond. So I think without further ado, let's hop in the rocket and blast off with Moonraker. First, there was a dream. Now, there is reality. Here in the untainted cradle of the heavens will be created a new super race. A race of perfect physical specimens. And I'm staring at one of those specimens right now. Joining us on the show for his third time, can you believe it? It is author, writer, documentarian, and all-around good egg, Mr. John Cork. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I did not manage to turn my computer to Do Not Disturb, so you may get little dings along the way. I can't even... At some point, I have to figure out how to do that. So
it makes sense. You are bringing in a shuttle right now. You are multitasking.
Yeah. I said you're a perfect physical specimen. It doesn't mean your technological skills are perfect. I brought you onto this cradle for your physicality.
That is a grave error in judgment, sir.
Ah, okay, right, yeah. Well, I mean, Drax wasn't perfect.
There were some holes in that plan.
A few. There's a few questionable links to other ideologies that maybe we'll skip in this discussion as well.
Holes in the plan, holes in the station.
John, how you been? How you doing?
I'm doing good. Busier than the proverbial one-arm paper hanger with an itch, but always willing to make time for you guys.
No, you're a star. And I was just talking to Cam off air. I'd say you're a spy movie expert, but I think your speciality, if you were going to do Mastermind here in the UK, would be James Bond through many associations and works that you've done and written in your time. And yet we've never had you on for a Bond film.
That's right. And this is barely a Bond film.
He's coming in. He's already firing his space laser at us. Well, we'll get into that story, your story with a particular raker of moons. But Cam, what are we talking about?
We are talking about 1979's Moonraker. There's no way to like sing that single word.
She says it. The Moonraker.
There you go. There you go. You nailed it.
Thanks.
You have far better abilities to sing these titles than I do. So you should
just
take
call
over.
Me Scotty Bassey.
Yeah, I find that one very difficult to sing as one word.
Well, that's. I mean, if people haven't already turned off, that's them clicking off now.
Thank you.
See you, folks. Nice having you here. It was fun.
I'll nail For Your Eyes Only. Trust me.
I look forward to it.
Thank you.
So this is our fourth Roger Moore film in a row, and I think let's set the table with you, John, a little bit, because our Roger Moore stories have already been slightly told. How we got into Bond, that's already been told, and probably how you got into Bond has already been told on your previous appearances. But when were you first introduced to Roger Moore's Bond?
Well, with Live and Let Die. Rode my bicycle with a friend of mine in it's the summer after fifth grade, between fifth and sixth, to the Capri Theater in Montgomery, Alabama, where Live and Let Die was playing. It was the Friday that it was opening. And, I just remember at the end of that boat chase as an 11-year-old sitting in that audience thinking, this may be the greatest 10 minutes of cinema I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's incredible stuff. How did you feel at the time transitioning between Connery to Moore? Did it mean much to you?
It didn't mean anything to me. I had seen Majesties in the theater, which my first memory of ever seeing any movie in a theater is from Russia with Love, which was a double bill that my mother took me to at 3 years old, from Russia with Love and Dr. No. And then my next memory of seeing a Bond film in the theater is On Her Majesty's Secret Service, which, I enjoyed the action and stuff, but I didn't really follow the movie, in a really concrete way. And then I saw Diamonds Are Forever, which again, I enjoyed, but it wasn't like that made me a Bond fan. But, 11 years old, the puberty knocking at the door there and everything, I was like, oh my God, this is it. This guy, he knows how to talk to these creatures called girls, and he knows how to present himself, and he's sophisticated, he's smart, he's elegant. And my grandparents had a lake cabin, so they had a ski boat at the lake cabin, a boat you could ski behind, not like some professionals, ski nautique boat or something like this. But I thought I knew what to do with boats. My grandparents would let me drive the boats occasionally and stuff like that, the boat around. And I saw that scene and I was like, this is insane. I've never seen anything like this. But the whole film I thought was just this incredible, mysterious way of looking at the world, just through a whole different lens that you get with a Bond film. It's our world, but it's not. And I like that.
How did you feel moving forward, in kind of like capsule reviews, if you will, jumping from, that one to Man with the Golden Gun to Spy?
So I before Man with the Golden Gun came out, I had read all the Bond novels twice. I'd read the biography of Ian Fleming. So I'd gotten myself good and hooked. And then I'd watched whatever had come on TV at that point to watch. I believe Thunderball and Dr. No had aired on ABC, and possibly Goldfinger again. I can't remember. But Man with the Golden Gun came out. I went and saw it. It opened on a Wednesday in Montgomery, Alabama. I got some of my friends to go with me, and I only saw it once in the movie theater. I told myself I loved it, but I was not compelled to go back and see it over and over again. Now, I only seen Live and Let Die once in the theater, but it was a hectic, busy summer. So, but then The Spy Who Loved Me, I was actually in London. It was my first trip to Europe, one of these Tuesday, it must be Belgium student tours that American kids sometimes get foisted on so that they're not underfoot with the family all summer. And I had an incredible time. And I came to London. It was the week after it had opened at the Odeon Leicester Square, grabbed a couple of people from the tour, went down there. It was also the week that they had an open house at Pinewood Studios. And so I was able to go to Pinewood Studios and see those stages. They had one of the Lotuses out there. They had, and the place was packed with humanity. You could barely move around. So it was a pretty wonderful summer, the summer of 1977. I have on my wall 2 British quads that I bought that summer, one of The Spy Who Loved Me and one of Live and Let Die, which is now been signed by Roger Moore, or was signed. I said not now. He's of course passed away, but when we did the audio commentaries for his films. So that was great. And then 78, I so loved being in Europe and England. I convinced my family to let me do a sort of exchange program, for lack of a better thing, a semester in Europe, my junior year of high school in England. And you had a special project you had to do. And mine was on the British film industry. I did the making of Moonraker as the focus of that, which of course was not really being made in the UK, but I didn't let that stop me. I met, I kept making phone calls, eventually got in touch with some people involved in the publicity and marketing for Bond, a man named Derek Coit. He had an assistant named Maurice Thrift. And so I would meet with them in London every so often, and they would sort of give me some updates for my project. And at the end of it, they said, you seem like a smart kid. And, is there anything we can do for you? And I said, well, I would love to go to the US premiere. They said, well, we could probably get you into the UK premiere. And I said, well, I don't know that I can probably get back over here again. Maybe I could have. I don't know. And he said, tell you what, take this letter. Derek Coit dictated a letter to me and said, add some stuff in there, which I did, and then send it to this guy at United Artists. And I did. And they sent me 2 tickets to go to the premiere of Moonraker at the Rivoli Theater in New York City. And even though I had a girlfriend at the time, I took my mother to go up there with me, and they put us up at the Warwick Hotel and limo driver to the movie theater. And this is not a lie. When some AM radio station in New York was on in that limo, and as we were driving just the short drive from the Warwick Hotel over to the front of the Rivoli Theater to let me out, there was a publicity guy from UA who goes with all the sort of guests there, who's riding in the limo with me, and they were getting me there very early so I could see all the celebrities going in. The guy said, Moonraker's premiering tonight at the Rivoli Theater. There's probably going to be a lot of crowds out there and everything. And then he played in 1979 the James Bond theme. And as I got out of the limo, the James Bond theme was playing on the radio in New York City. And so, and on my wall behind me, you can just barely see it. There's a photo of me with Roger Moore at the premiere from 1979. So,
and what was that experience like with Roger Moore?
Yeah.
Roger Moore was told, oh, here's the world's biggest James Bond fan. I was shoved out there for a photo. They took 2 photos. I'm going to grab the photo so that you can see it and you can comment on it. Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
So I'm bringing this up. It's always great on a podcast to bring up something that is.
I'll post it online with permission as well so people can see it.
Yeah. So there's 17-year-old John Cork with Roger and his wife, Louisa, and the Howard Johnson sign in the background. And as you can see, I'm looking at Roger. Yeah. Roger is not looking at me.
No.
Okay. There was no sense whatsoever of, it's just like I'm posing with a person I don't know exists.
Mm-hmm.
It's so that was that. I mean, he was not rude. He was not whatever. But I was thrilled to get the photo. I'm still thrilled to have the photo. Clearly, I have it framed and on my wall. But there was no there. On that end, there was nothing like, oh, let's chat.
Yeah. I remember meeting actually some actors from the first season of Star Trek Discovery before they'd ever done a convention. And they showed up. They were not featured guests. They just showed up. And I met a whole group of them in the vendor's room when they were being swarmed. And I was actually talking to one of the actors, Mary Chieffo. And it was like there was a pause because someone had called her name. And she turned back to me and she had no idea who I was. And it was just, you could tell that sense of being overwhelmed by everything going on around you. And just like that inability to focus. So I can kind of understand how Roger Moore would just be like staring all over the place.
I never thought Mary Chieffo and Roger Moore would ever be compared to each other. I have to say that's a real stretch, Cameron. But I
they're
like
both tall. They're both tall.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it was a wonderful experience. I got to go to the post premiere party,
Mm.
and that was the point. I have to say, at 17 years old, somebody who had become a Bond fan and had somehow managed, a family had no connection to the film industry whatsoever, to have gotten invited and flown to New York at the expense of United Artists to go to this premiere because they could get a little bit of publicity out of oh, this Bond fan, whatever. It was for that to have happened, you have to feel like you're riding pretty freaking high, right?
Yeah.
And but at the premiere, Frank Sinatra was there, very much impressed my mother.
Oh my God.
Now that actually got my heart going for some reason more than Roger Moore did.
Oh my God, the naked runner himself.
Yeah, I did not speak to the chairman of the board. So, but then also there was Brooke Shields. Now, at the post-premiere party, which was at the New York discotheque Regine's, which was like the hoity-toity, flashy place to be. I got to see Brooke and a young friend of hers, female friend of hers, sitting there, and it was a discotheque. They're playing dance music, and I realized I had a mission in life, and that mission was that 17-year-old me needed to go and ask 15-year-old Brooke Shields to dance. I did not expect, there would be some connection or an exchange of phone numbers or whatever, but I realized, if I danced with Brooke Shields, that, it didn't matter what anybody said to me or what insults were hurled at me in my senior year of high school or anything like this. I danced with Brooke Shields. There we go. So I looked over there at Brooke and was waiting for the right song to be played, and I didn't have it in me, man. I did not. I could not go over there. I was too intimidated, and that, I think, in the long run, served me well. It is. I did not need to be that cocky which may have happened had I danced with Brooke Shields, and my girlfriend would have completely been fine with me dancing with Brooke Shields. I mean, she would have understood that, okay, you dance with Brooke Shields. It's not like Brooke's going to invite me over to her house. We're not going to become bosom buddies or anything like this. Certainly not going to date. But yeah, it was just and another guy who was around my age, did go up and ask her to dance, and she just politely went and they danced together for a song, and I just couldn't do it. I could not do it. I did not have the chops to do it.
The real sign of integrity in a person is to fess up to something like that, because anyone could rewrite history right now and say, "Do you asked her?" And she said yes, and we had a lovely little dance to a funky disco number, and then that was it.
It has to be the Moonraker disco theme, Scott.
It has to be the Moonraker disco theme. Yes, it does.
Which I don't believe was played. I do not think they were playing Moonraker.
What a waste. What a waste. Yeah. But no, you chose to go with the honest route, and it endears me all the more.
Well, it's just, for me, it was just, I did go and speak to Ken Adam, who I recognized. They had that week also, there was a Bond festival going on at the Museum of Modern Art, and they had you can read in some of the old issues of Bondage magazine that Richard Chinkman put together. He transcribed some of those the audio from some of those events. There was a Maurice Binder day, but there was a day with Cubby Broccoli. Louis Gilbert was there, but I got to see Louis Gilbert. I'd recently watched a film he had directed called Seventh Dawn, and tell him how much I'd enjoyed it. I don't think the film had been a big hit, so he seemed to appreciate that. And, it was great. I mean, I just felt like I was getting this incredible insight into how these films were made, and just, it was just a fantastic experience to be up there that week and put in there. And so if I didn't dance with Brooke Shields, it's okay. And I think we all sometimes, you need to know your limits, as they say. And my limit was, the reason I wouldn't go ask Brooke Shields to dance was I wasn't prepared to deal with the thank you, but no.
Oh, yeah.
Because see, if you ask her to dance and you're turned down, that's like, I reached too high and I failed. If you ask her and you say yes, then everybody's going to hear about it forever. And I realized at this point in my life, and many years earlier, nobody needed to hear about that. But if you just don't have the guts to actually ask her to dance, you only failed yourself.
Who'd have thought there'd been a life lesson inside the Moonraker review? But I mean, it's good advice. Like, ask. What's the worst?
Exactly. At this point in my life, I would not have a problem, but I'm in a wonderful relationship, so I would not be asking somebody else to dance.
If it was me, John, I would have said yes to you.
Thank you so much. That means the world, Scott.
Comparable, I always say. Mary Cheffo, Roger Moore, Scott Hardy, and Brooke Shields. I mean, hey ho, what can you do? It's interesting. Like, we have spoken about some of the things you worked on in the Bond world moving forward with your career. I mean, over 30 documentaries. I could list it, and I probably should one day. But was that the beginning of that journey for you of actually wanting to work within Bond somehow? When you had that sort of doing the behind the scenes of Moonraker, did that really start it off?
At that age, I knew I wanted to go to film school. I wanted to make films. At that point, I thought, someday I will direct a James Bond film, which I'm never going to direct a James Bond film, and I'm very much at peace with that. But so, I've never been burdened by a ton of like, thinking things weren't possible.
Sure.
I was fortunately raised in a family that basically said, if you dream it, you might be able to get it. But if you're not willing to seek it, you're never going to get it. And so, I didn't make Bond films. I made, making of documentaries about Bond films. Yeah. So it worked out pretty good.
I mean, you got to mingle with everyone pretty much by the end. You ran the gamut. And I think bringing the sort of Moonraker story home, I want to get, maybe when we do the behind the scenes, like your behind the scenes of Moonraker journey might be an interesting discussion to have as well, because working on the documentaries for Moonraker, and I imagine the commentaries and things like that, you probably got a glimpse of the film that most people don't even get.
Yeah, I mean, we tried to put as much out there in the commentaries and in the making of documentary, and a little bit more in some of the book stuff that I've written out there. I mean, it wasn't like we were trying to hold back a lot.
No.
So, but it's, the great thing is you meet these people and they're all just really good people.
Mm-hmm.
That's the thing about building a team to make a movie is you get people who are willing to push themselves, who are willing to strive to make a great movie. They're not in it just for the money. They want to make something that is going to give people a couple hours of entertainment and escape from their lives.
And this film even escapes orbit. So,
well, I don't think it escapes orbit. I think it may escape the Earth's. We never get to the moon in Moonraker.
That's true.
Wow, you just ruined the film for me. Thank you. Disavowed. Get rid of that thing. Cam, get the slide whistle. Okay. I mean, we set it up, but if you've never watched Moonraker and for some reason you're into this review 20 minutes, here is a slice of Moonraker synopsis for you. Moonraker, where all the other Bonds end, this one begins.
Okay.
Never really got that tagline.
They usually end on a high, so...
Sure. Oh, so this ends on a low, is that?
Yeah, I think that's what they're implying.
Okay. Oh, sure. After Drax Industries' Moonraker space shuttle is hijacked, secret agent James Bond is assigned to investigate, traveling to California to meet the company's owner, the mysterious Hugo Drax. With the help of scientist Dr. Holly Goodhead, Bond soon uncovers Drax's nefarious plans for humanity, all while fending off an old nemesis, Jaws, and venturing to Venice, Rio, the Amazon, and even outer space.
Is there an exclamation mark next to outer space?
There's not. What a disappointment.
Oh, fail.
I would have shouted it more if it was outer space. But
yeah,
no, it's just outer space dot.
Oh.
Well, although according to John, it doesn't count as outer space. It's in the orbit.
I just said not out of orbit. We're always in orbit.
Okay.
Does
that count as outer space though?
as far as I'm concerned, if you can't breathe, you're sort of screwed. It doesn't matter how much further you are,
Okay. I just want to, for like the rest of the review, get our definitions right, because then we won't clash over gravitational pull. Cam, why don't you lead us off a little bit with your Moonraker backstory?
Mine actually also involves a cabin, a summer cabin that my grandparents owned. Every year we would go there for the month of August. And one of our big go-to activities was we would rent movies at the local convenience store. Not even a video store. It was just a convenience store that had a video rack.
Sure.
And that's how I saw a couple of the Roger Moore and actually the two Dalton films as well. They had a very limited Bond collection. They had, I believe, Octopussy, the two Daltons, and Moonraker. And
that's a hell of a sandwich.
That is indeed. And we had seen at that point View to a Kill, maybe one other, and we went up to the old cabin, and my dad went to the video store with us, and we wanted to watch a James Bond movie. We had never seen Moonraker. We wanted to get that one. My dad says, "That's not a good one." That was basically his immediate review right up front. He's like, "Guys, this isn't a good one." But we didn't care. We wanted to see it. And we went back, and
I know you and Janine quite well. I can see you digging your heels in a little bit.
That's right. And we enjoyed watching Moonraker. We had a lot of fun. I don't know that there was a lot of critical thought going into any of those Roger Moore films in particular at that age. It was like, these are fun. They are a blast. Like, how could we not love these? But I will say the thing about Moonraker was it wasn't one that I watched a lot. Whereas something like Spy Who Loved Me, Live and Let Die, Octopussy, we watched like on an endless loop over the course of my young years. Moonraker I probably saw like twice until really the home video collections came out, and then I would see it more. But it was not a go-to childhood favorite.
Which isn't surprising for you, because you weren't all that fascinated with space.
Well, I was a huge Star Wars kid. Massive Star Wars kid. So if anything, you would think this would actually speak exactly to what, I don't know, 11, 10-year-old Cam would want.
Well, no, it wouldn't, because this is, of course, not science fiction. It's science fact.
That was the problem. Yeah. It was like, I don't want 2001: A Space Odyssey. I want Star Wars.
I just, that Cubby Broccoli quote lives in my head rent-free. I think that's actually courtesy of your documentary, John.
Yeah, it was in the press releases, the announcement of it and everything like that. Yeah, so
it's in the Bond Archives book as well.
Yeah, it's a great quote. I don't really. I mean, also the line where Cubby sort of really just drops an elbow on the Moonraker book, like calling it small. Now, it's actually my favorite book. It's like, hey, give it a break, guys. It's a good book.
Just a piddly little rocket aimed at London.
Yeah,
you know.
What's the deal? Who cares about London? Blow it up, I say.
It would be a really good, like almost like Quantum of Solace style, like fast-paced 100-minute Bond film. Like, I think you could do something really cool with the Moonraker book. But I get at that point coming out of like something like, Spy Who Loved Me, and even like Live and Let Die and Man with the Golden Gun are not as big, extravagant to films as Spy Who Loved Me, but they're still going kind of big in what they want to do. I don't know that Moonraker fits in well.
I think it would make a very good, like, old school Bond, like if you period style Bond, 50s Bond story, and you have Gala Brand, and you just make it about that and their romance and the Drax in the background with the rockets and stuff. I think that would be interesting.
If they'd continued down the road of like From Russia with Love, like they hadn't made Goldfinger and they just worked in Moonraker, then that would have worked. Yeah,
but I can see why. But piddly little rocket just sort of hurts me as a Londoner. I haven't got a story, really. The early Bond films, and this isn't even an early one, really, all get sort of smudged into one for me because you just sort of watch them. And growing up in the UK, they're always on television on bank holidays. You just assimilate them. And I will have seen Moonraker. I think I remember finding it a bit odd as a kid. Like, I don't think of Bond in space. I think of Star Trek. That was my space thing. So it's only going back to it and with the home, like the DVD collection, probably courtesy of you, John. and then I've seen it in theaters since, and that sort of stuff, that I've really sort of revisited Moonraker, and I'll probably get into my thoughts in a bit on it. But it's not one that jumped out to me as a kid.
I have a question for you, Scott. You are the person, I think, who this might have been not an issue, but like something that might have been a fact, which is like, which did you discover first? Moonraker through the movie or GoldenEye 64 and the Aztec level?
I have an earlier memory of the Aztec level, but it doesn't mean I saw that first.
Okay.
Because I think I assimilated most of the Bond films growing up, and GoldenEye the game didn't come out until I was 10.
Okay.
So yeah,
because for a certain generation, like that Aztec level probably would have been their first real taste of Moonraker.
sure. And I definitely played the hell out of that, and the characters from it and such, and used the laser guns. But I knew what that was from. I knew what it was referencing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think I would have seen it. But it's not one that ever jumped out to me as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I wish I could come in and be like, I loved it growing up. Yay! I had the rocket.
It's kind of crazy though when you look at what Moonraker is aspiring to.
Yeah. Well, also, like me, I was a huge Thunderbirds fan.
Yeah.
Like, you've also got that, like, the model work and stuff in here. Like, there's a lot of connective tissue, but
Yeah.
it just didn't really line up for me.
Yeah.
Well, okay. And the impression I got from you, John, was you mildly liked it as a kid when you first saw it?
Well, I wasn't a kid. I was 17, so I was a little bit, late teens, I guess is
Sure.
what you would put it there. But, I loved it. It's like so many Bond fans. You love it and you hate it. You love the fact that they're going to have a fight in free fall.
Yep.
I mean, it's one of the greatest moments in cinema. A literal fight going on in free fall over a parachute.
Mm-hmm.
You can't beat that stuff, and it's all done for real. Aside from a few bad projection shots that, but taking those out, and then you've got Jaws pulling the ripcord so that it rips out, and the whole thing just he's flapping his arms like wings, and you just go like, okay, well now I'm dying a little bit. And so
it's a tone setter.
It's got that kind of like thing going on where you just go like, is this the same group of people doing this really cool thing? And then we're going to have the triple take pigeon in St. Mark's Square, and the like James Bond's escaping by driving around in circles in a gondola hovercraft in St. Mark's Square. None of it makes a bit of sense in that end. So, but it's, it was the highest grossing Bond film of the 70s by a long shot. It's the arguably,
that's crazy.
Yeah, arguably the biggest James Bond production ever mounted. Out there, when you just talk about the scale of what they were doing and the things they were trying to accomplish there, it's this incredible testament to analog filmmaking. They are doing with models and the earliest stuff the Melee's brothers would do with winding the film back in the camera and re-exposing it at a level no one had ever done before or has done since on there. And it's also the Bond film where James Bond is it is truly a presentation of the character and story that is based totally on the audience having an immediate understanding of who James Bond is as a cultural icon. And it survives or fails purely upon the Roger Moore interpretation of James Bond.
Well, I think we could end it there, folks. I think that wraps us up. I can't argue with a bit of that. Well, Cam, why don't you, and I imagine you're probably going to recruit John a few times during this, take us through the blast-off into space of Moonraker.
Yes, John, jump in anytime. It'd be much appreciated from the master. So Moonraker was based on Ian Fleming's third novel, which was published in 1955, and it was somewhat based on an original screenplay idea that Fleming had. And he ultimately was trying to develop Moonraker into a film for a few years, actually, with producer Alexander Korda, who'd worked on movies like The Third Man and The Spy in Black. And they actually set up Moonraker at the Rank organization, and it just kind of went nowhere. And ultimately, Ian Fleming bought the rights back, where it just kind of sat with him for a bit. Now, Scott, you did a special episode on Moonraker.
I did.
Way back in the day. With Jamie Anderson, the son of Jerry Anderson. Jerry Anderson, of course, English writer and producer, worked on shows like Thunderbirds, Stingray, Supercar, Mysterions, UFO, and Space Precinct. Scott's giving me the furrowed brow.
Well, the Mysterons were bad guys in Captain Scarlet.
Oh, yes, Captain Scarlet and the Mysterons. I apologize. These are all shows that mean nothing to me. This is very much Scott's little corner of the...
Yes, Scott had a fact right for once. Come on.
Now, Jerry Anderson and his collaborator, Tony Barwick, who also worked on Thunderbirds and UFO and Captain Scarlet, they were working on a Moonraker adaptation. And Scott, why don't you talk a little bit about that one, because you did the big expose on that.
Expose makes it sound like I got my legs out. But, maybe if you want to check that out, you can skip to the end and I'll do a little dance for you. No, I sat down with friend of the show, AJ Chowdhury, and Jamie Anderson. And Jamie Anderson basically got permission from the Broccoli's at the time to take us through the script. No one had really talked about it and what was in the script. He didn't send it to us, although I have seen it since. And some of the major set pieces that were in there, it was a lot closer to the book, but then there were also some rather odd things like moon bases and ships that fire rockets out. A little bit of that ends up in The Spy Who Loved Me with the Liparus boat that eats boats. Or eats submarines. So yeah, it's partially far more reverent of the source material, but also partially very Jerry Anderson in its like, let's have rockets and moon bases, because that's very just Jerry Anderson.
Yeah, and so like that was an early version of Moonraker that just didn't really go anywhere, and as you mentioned, a lot of those ideas wind up in like The Spy Who Loved Me and other Bond films. Now, when we go back to The Spy Who Loved Me, it ended, of course, with James Bond will return in For Your Eyes Only.
And a lot of people would argue that James Bond did not actually return until For Your Eyes Only.
I never looked at it that way, but that's actually a very fair point. Yeah. Okay.
And Roger Moore had signed initially up for 3 films. He had done his 3 films, and so he was now negotiating movie by movie. And when he negotiated to appear in this film, he actually signed up for Your Eyes Only.
Oh, did they have to pay him more to do Moonraker instead?
He's like, oh, this isn't what I signed up for at all.
I didn't sign up to leave orbit.
Yes.
Wait, we don't have to leave orbit, sir. It's all good then.
Yeah, but the success of Star Wars, and Cubby mentioned more often Close Encounters of the Third Kind. It's a little bit like that Star Trek The Motion Picture thing where they tend to reference Close Encounters more.
Well, isn't the keypad tones Close Encounters?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, okay. I never really looked that factoid up, but okay. I'm glad my ears work.
Yeah, there's explicit references to Close Encounters and 2001, but there's no Star Wars reference, really.
They were trying to hide just how money hungry a move this was. Because the explicit Star Wars references, and maybe you have seen the blasters used in space battles somewhere besides Star Wars prior to Moonraker. But yeah, that's a pretty like explicit concept that they've just taken straight from Star Wars with the blasters and the rotoscope, glowing beams going and popping people. And
well, you could also say that Jaws in the street is the trench run, right? Like it's a...
Oh, of course.
No.
Of course. That's what everyone thinks of.
No? Okay. Just me? All right. Just trying to make a joke? No? Fine. Okay. No worries.
But you could say the finale with the gas capsules is very, very end of Star Wars.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, sure.
It even has like a real use the Force moment with the final one where the automatic targeting goes out.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, all right. We'll give you that.
So they did look at the Anderson script, but realized it wasn't really what they wanted to do. At this point, there was a director who was vying to do this movie, and that was Mr. Steven Spielberg, who was coming out of Close Encounters and had always wanted to do a Bond film and had met with them, but they couldn't afford him because at this point he had Jaws and Close Encounters to his name, and so that was that. Spielberg was always kind of one of the great ifs with the Bond franchise. He tried to do it twice. Both times, no luck. And what could have been?
Well, we ended up with Indiana Jones.
True. Yeah. That was his, alternate pick, which isn't too bad. No.
I'll take Indy over Spielberg trying to do this script.
Yeah. So instead, they brought back Louis Gilbert, the writer, producer, director who worked on The Spy Who Loved Me and You Only Live Twice. And he jumped onto this movie like days before the release of The Spy Who Loved Me in theaters.
I mean, he struck gold, according to this show, twice.
Well, it was very waffly on You Only Live Twice. That's the one that I will never quite die on the hill for, but Spy Who Loved Me for sure. Yes.
Yeah. Well, 2 out of 3 ain't bad, Cam.
You can't argue with his success ratio in terms of box office popularity with Bond, though.
No, and his love of monorail.
That too. And so they brought in Tom Mankiewicz to work with Gilbert on an original story for this film. And they were visiting NASA, interviewing scientists. It was very important that this was fact-based. And and at this point, they actually put out a rough draft, and it was called For Your Eyes Only. But it featured shuttles. It also had Bond visiting India and the Himalayas. It had an Eiffel Tower sequence. It had Bond in a mini jet, and it had them being dragged over coral, taken from the Live and Let Die book. Sequences that would all wind up in the Bond films to come.
Where did the corals come in?
That's in For Your Eyes Only.
Of course it is. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And Mankiewicz wrote in the script that the shuttles that would be featured in For Your Eyes Only would be called Moonraker, which ultimately just led to the name change because they were like, well, we have that book.
Yeah. At that point, you're kind of like spoiling both books if you do For Your Eyes Only featuring Moonraker.
Yeah. And so Mankiewicz had that rough draft, but ultimately it was Christopher Wood who came in, who'd written The Spy Who Loved Me, that ended up writing the screenplay for the film.
Yeah.
And he was someone who had this kind of interesting career in that he was writing adventure novels, historical fiction, but also like erotica. And he had had some of his erotica novels turned into movies. The Confessions books became Confessions films. And this was actually his follow-up to the 1978 softcore film Rosie Dixon, Night Nurse, for which he wrote the script and the novel.
So what was his name again?
Christopher Wood.
One more time?
Wood.
Apt.
Yes.
I'm the first person to ever make that joke.
Indeed.
Actually, John, I'll throw you a question because you're the only person in the room I think can answer it. For Your Eyes Only, is that part of the short stories collection? And is that the one with the duck blind?
For Your Eyes Only is is from the short story collection. Yes, absolutely. And when you say it's part of the duck blind, it's the story where Bond is going up to try to get personal vengeance for M for some people in Vermont. And he
is that the one where they do like a chase across like some rocks by the ocean or something?
No,
like
no.
That...
That is Risico. So
that's Risico.
Yeah.
Okay. I read that book this year and I've already forgotten half the short stories. Whoopsie daisy. No good.
So this movie had to move out of England for tax reasons, which is why it was shot in France. They were not popular with the local film crews for that, but it was deemed necessary because of the cost of this production. They did stay at the 007 stage, though, where that's where they did all the miniature work. So they weren't completely abandoning Pinewood.
And they only had to hire a small amount of crew?
Yeah.
Because miniatures?
Yeah, exactly. That's right. They were very tiny.
Wow. I've been hung out to dry on this episode. This is not good.
The move actually affected some of the casting, too. When it came to Drax, They were looking at James Mason for the role, which actually makes a lot of sense when you
I could
see
see
the
it.
way,
Mhm.
when you see how Michael Lonsdale looks. They were also looking at Stuart Granger, who was in like a long time working actor, but he was in like Scaramouche back in the day, which was a big hit, a swashbuckling film. But when they moved out of England, part of the necessity was to hire French actors.
Mhm.
And so they actually went to Louis Jourdan, who passed on it and would come back later with Octopussy.
Yeah.
And then they had Michael Lonsdale.
Which, we're not getting into the review just yet, but one of the shining stars of this film.
Yeah, like it's a real case of, and it's very common, but the first choice isn't necessarily the best choice.
Mhm.
They found the right actor.
Yeah, and it struck gold with that.
Yeah, and for Holly Goodhead, Jacqueline Smith was supposed to have that role and had to move on because of her contract with Charlie's Angels.
Oh.
And so they had been interested in Lois Chiles. They actually wanted her to be the female lead of The Spy Who Loved Me, but she had been unavailable at the time, and so they got her here.
Okay. Yeah. I can't imagine a world where Jacqueline Smith is doing Charlie's Angels this and then Born Identity a couple of years later. That's weird. That's a really weird crossover.
Does she do Born Identity if she does this?
Probably not. If you're a Bond girl, I think you've attained a higher status.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
And Jaws was brought back because kids loved him in The Spy Who Loved Me.
I've got some questions about this.
John, when you were seeing the film back in the day, how did you feel about the return of Jaws?
Yeah, I was okay with the return of Jaws, until he returned. I mean, when he shoves Bond out of the plane, I'm like, all right, great, Jaws is back. And then Jaws is parachuting, and I'm like, well, doggone, we're seeing, this incredible fight in free fall. There's something it never, it's beyond my comprehension of just how cool that was. But as I say, he pulls that ripcord out and you start getting that Wile E. Coyote stuff going on. And I'm like, guys, come on there. And people say, oh, it was the kids. And Louis Gilbert said this, and I've never seen, there may be tons of letters from kids that somehow got United Artists address or whatever and wrote in about this. Although I, certainly don't know how they would have gotten that address. I believe it really came down to Louis Gilbert's son or grandson, whoever it was, who saw it and said, I don't want Jaws to be a baddie. I want him to be a goodie. Why can't he be a good guy? I think that was really like the thing where Louis Gilbert came in and said, oh, we need to turn him around at the end on there. But, I mean, it's a movie that is meant to be fun and funny. It is not a thriller in any conventional sense. And Jaws is a great comic character. He was a great comic character in The Spy Who Loved Me. So conceptually, I can go like, oh yeah, he can be funny again. I mean, but they've didn't work out that well.
I mean, I was one of those young kids that was absolutely obsessed with Jaws. The character just really grabbed me, so much so that one of my first home movies is me with tinfoil over my teeth, recreating Jaws moments.
Who was the victim here?
No one.
What are you eating? What are you biting on?
I think I'm just like gnashing my teeth a lot.
Oh, okay. In a fair and just world, we would find copies of that and put them online.
I believe my death scene was falling off a fence.
We can only hope.
I mean, I can have it converted to DVD at some point, and
I'd like to see one of them just for kicks and giggles. I just want to see like Cam Jaws Smith.
It's like a real like stationary camera in the backyard kind of deal, and
Yeah,
I can almost guarantee you cannot see the tinfoil on my teeth, but I suffered for my art.
I bet you told Richard Kiel all about it when you met him.
I don't think I did actually. I should have though.
You
That
should
was a
have.
wasted opportunity.
It was.
Yeah.
Any more for us, Cam?
Yeah. So originally they were talking to ILM, Industrial Light and Magic, who'd done Star Wars, about doing the effects, but ILM wanted 2% of the profits of the film, and so Cubby Broccoli was like, nope, and basically turned to his crew and was like, so how are we going to do this? And so Derek Meddings and his team were the ones creating the Moonraker effects.
And they did a great job.
They did indeed, which we'll get to in a second.
Oh.
The budget for the film was $34 million. Domestically, it did 70. International, 140.5 for a worldwide total of 210.5. And for comparison, The Spy Who Loved Me, which was a smash hit, a couple years before, did 185.4. So Moonraker was out of this world.
You can't argue with box office like that.
Yep. The top 3 for the year. Number 1, Superman. Number 2, The Amityville Horror. And number 3, Rocky 2. Moonraker was not too far below. And this film was nominated for an Oscar for its visual effects, relating back to what you said about the team doing a great job. And what a year for visual effects nominations. You had Alien, The Black Hole, the Disney film. You had Moonraker, Spielberg's 1941, and Star Trek the Motion Picture.
Which one?
What do you think won?
Oh, well, I know it wasn't Star Trek the Motion Picture.
Mm-hmm.
I'm guessing it wasn't this.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Alien.
You got it. Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. I think, me and you have done a live podcast about this year, so I know a little bit about it. But I'm also a big defender of The Black Hole, I have to say. I think that is it's boring and long, but there's a lot of heart in it.
1941 is the only one I have no time for in this group. Yeah.
John, where do you come down on The Black Hole? Or 1979 in general for science fiction?
1979 was a great year for me personally. So I'm just I have so many great memories of seeing movies that year. But it was also a year where there was a lot in the film industry where people were trying to figure out what had happened with Star Wars. And, films, 18 months to 2 years development time at that point. And so you had a lot of things that were sort of wrestling around over the success of 1977, which was a banner year at the box office for so many reasons. Disney's trying to do their version of Star Wars with The Black Hole, which is a remake of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea set in space, which they would do again, but anyway, everybody was like, oh, we can do Star Wars, but we're going to do it our way. So we get sort of the British miniature way with Moonraker, and with The Black Hole, you get, Disney had done amazing special effects on a lot of different things. And so they, went all out on The Black Hole. And I saw it once in the theater. I've not seen it since. I'd like to rewatch it someday, but I think it's there's a reason I only saw it once in the theater.
Sure.
When it came out, it was, and it was ponderous in ways.
Yes.
That just was,
the John Barry score is great though.
Yeah. But his score for Moonraker is great.
Mm-hmm.
But, it's also a good movie, good music to go and take a nap to sometimes too. He's at that point. Somebody had told John Barry at some point in the 70s, don't slow down a great action scene with music that's too fast. And he talks about this where the tempo's too high or whatever. And he talks about this in interviews. And he was really going overboard with both Moonraker and The Black Hole score to make sure that music was just going at a very, very ponderous pace. And it's beautiful music, but it just wasn't getting the pulse quickening the way something like a score for Goldfinger, even You Only Live Twice, certainly Majesty's was.
Yeah. Like there's a definite dreaminess to a lot of the music here, which is, I don't know if it's the best compliment for the wackiness of the movie. It's an interesting choice. I'll say that.
Well, there's moments it works, like, the flight to space or flight into space, I think it is. And you're like, oh, this is good. Like, I like this. It is majestic, and that's what they're trying to depict. But, like the Three-Ring Circus music playing, and it's like, I know that probably isn't John Barry, but like, there are moments where I'm just like, why is this music playing?
Yeah.
What has this got to do with anything?
The opening song I find very ill-fitting.
You can't defend the Shirley Bassey track.
No.
It's just, you've whiffed it. You've got Barry back, you've got Bassey back, and you do this with it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was a last minute thing, though. Paul Williams. We now have the Paul Williams, tracks on it. title songs are very, very difficult. You know,
Mm.
you hear them and you go like, oh, that works. That's great. But crafting a song, I mean, this is a very, very, intricate art. And when you're dealing with Bond, you know, Nobody Does It Better was not a traditional Bond title song. It's a
Mhm, mhm.
beautiful, beautiful song. Great lyrics, incredible melody from Marvin Hamlish there. Live and Let Die had been a fantastic song. Number 2 on the charts, both of those in the United States. Uh, You know, there's a lot of weight that's out there. And what are you going to do? Do you lean into that or do you lean back from it? And I think Barry leaned back from it and said, I'm going to do a much more dreamy song. This is what outer space means to me. I'm not going to compete with sort of the John Williams majesty of the Star Wars theme or anything like that. Um, I'm not defending the song, but it's not the low point to me in the Bond title song world.
No, there are worse. I think though if they'd swapped in the disco version, it may be more dated, but I actually think it would have worked better.
Good on you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'll take that one.
Hey, it wasn't me getting hung out to dry for once. That's good. Let's throw it on Cam. I feel less attacked now.
The final note I'll make is that this was the final Bond film for Ken Adam, who we're going to, I think, have a special episode about next week.
We are, yeah.
Yeah. And then also for Bernard Lee, who would pass away shortly after this movie. And the M role would be kind of up in the air for at least one movie. And then we would settle on Robert Brown for Octopussy.
Well, Bernard Lee doesn't pass away until after For Your Eyes Only is shot. He actually shows up on the set the first day of For Your Eyes Only, and they realized they had to recast. At that point.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. So, but yes, he still, turns in, I think, a great turn as M in this film. So
I like that little scene together in Venice.
Yes,
That's nice.
I love that. And the "oh, thank you" with the dart in the painting moment is great. That's a great M moment.
Yeah. It left us on a high. Much like Desmond Llewelyn in The World Is Not Enough.
Yeah.
Didn't mean to be the last scene, but it was a nice way to go.
Mm-hmm.
Is that us, Cam?
That is it.
Okay. It's coming up to the hour mark, and we haven't spoken about what we think about Moonraker. I think it's time. Let's release the hounds. I think they're going to chase John through the forest dreamily first. So, John, you're up. You are, the aficionado between the three of us. What do you think of Moonraker?
I think Moonraker has it all, which includes all the greatness that you want from Bond set pieces. It has a glorious globe-trotting feel to it. It has just a scale that is crazy there. It also has, just as those things are magnified in a Bond film, it also magnifies the weaknesses that have appeared in the Bond series over the course of the film series lifetime. It misses the tone over and over again. The things where you go in some of the other films and you go like, that moment's not, it's not quite right, but I can overlook it because this one, they shove it into your face in such a way that it is like the penny whistle of the Astro Spiral jump in The Man with the Golden Gun times 20. and things where you have to step back and go like, damn it, they don't understand why people love Bond when they were making this film. There's a sort of cockiness and arrogance within this film, but it's also a film that sort of Icarus like reaches too high and fails on that level, and because of that, I can be very sympathetic to it. You look at a sequence like the boat chase, which is starting out like really cool. They're shooting that in Florida, and then it's going to climax at Iguazu Falls. And, Cubby had gone to Iguazu Falls on a location scout there. And he's like, we're setting a scene here. They had written a scene there. They are going to have that boat go over those falls and go tumbling down. They had gotten permission from the government of Brazil to basically take a very expensive speedboat and wash it over the falls. And let's just see what the hell happens. And they could not do it. They could not make that thing happen. They couldn't even get the freaking hang glider to appropriately glide over the top of the falls in a way that they could shoot it properly. Everything was just too complex. And at the end, where they had, said the budget was $34 million, well, they had run out of money. They had, I think it was something like 2 days to shoot all the back projection plates for the film. So they had all of these things set up, the top of the cable car stuff. Again, a great, amazing sequence. You literally have Dickie Graydon, the stuntman, doubling Roger Moore, hanging by one hand, no safety cable on him, on the edge of that freaking cable car there, off of that gap. I mean, crazy, insane stunt. You'd never do it that way today, of course. But so much of it's this back projection stuff with the light falling off on the edges, the colors not working, just so much stuff there. The ludicrous ability of Jaws to jump from one cable car to the other, which is shot in ways where you just go like, who said that was okay to release the film with that moment in there? You have scenes where, it's like the concept is great, but they did not have time to script this out. And this is the real lesson of this. Don't start with your set pieces. Start with your characters and your story. Spy Who Loved Me works because there is the great conflict that we know, the crashing trains between Bond and Anya. He has killed her freaking lover. We saw it at the beginning. We know that shoe is going to drop at a certain point. We don't know what the fallout of that is going to be. And so that's not the A story, but it keeps us hooked in emotionally into that story. There's nothing that hooks us in emotionally in Moonraker. It's almost like watching an incredibly big budget, long skit where Roger Moore is playing James Bond, on, some TV variety show out there. And it survives off of his charm on that end. But I got to tell you, 8-year-old kids, they sit down and watch this movie and they are like, oh my God, they have made a James Bond movie for me. They are all in.
One thing I really noticed watching it actually was how frequently it punctuates with action sequences. Like, my memory was always that Moonraker was slower paced, but actually when you watch it, you realize how often they're almost like insecure. They're like, no, we need something to happen. Like in Venice, like the guy with the knives in the coffin. Throw that in there now. Or throw, like the gravity testing thing. Like every maybe like 10 minutes or something like that, they're like, here's a fun beat. Like, here's an action sequence that kids can get excited about.
I was just taking a moment to sort of breathe that in, John, because deconstructing what you said a little bit, or perhaps interpreting it, it's almost as if they made a modern-day Mission Impossible film. Because one of my biggest problems with the Mission Impossible films, especially the later ones, is they skip character. And it's all about set piece, exposition, set piece, exposition, set piece. That's basically the layout of the film. And you could look at Moonraker at exactly the same lens.
Well, you can. The thing I'd say with Moonraker is you've got Bond's character. Roger Moore is constantly, he is playing clearly a James Bond there. And while I made the joke about James Bond doesn't return till For Your Eyes Only, that really has more to do with him being in an environment that feels James Bondian. Now, is James Bond going to drive a hovercraft through St. Mark's Square that doubles as a gondola? Probably not. But the villain's probably not going to try to kill Bond by having somebody in a coffin throw knives at him.
Yeah.
That is somehow the coffin is up too high that it's going to be shoved off the top of the hearse boat, into the canal for reasons unknown to anyone. I mean, it's just there's a lot of things that just don't make a lick of sense in Moonraker. But Roger Moore is playing Roger Moore's James Bond to the nth degree. More so than he's playing it in a film where he's playing closer to a kind of he's getting back to sort of a core of a literary James Bond. It's a huge argument on the set of Fear Eyes Only. Argument, probably too strong. A discussion about whether, Roger Moore's James Bond would kick the car that Locke is in over the cliff, or is it just the weight of the dove pin that's going to set it over the cliff? More Moonraker Bond, it's going to just be the dove pin. You're not going to have that extra layer of like, screw you, going on there. So, I would say there's character there, but there's not conflict and drama there.
Mm-hmm.
Are Bond and Holly Goodhead going to get together at the end? Or are they just going to snip at each other the entire time? Not a great conflict. There's not real drama going on there.
Well, they also play, if we're going to just pick on that little thing for a second, the immediate reaction that Bond has to Dr. Holly Goodhead is that she's a woman.
Yeah.
And he's never really showed himself to be that way inclined. Like, if it was Sean Connery's Bond saying that, I would be more inclined to understand it. But, like, Roger Moore going, a woman as a doctor? Like, we sure we're letting her up in space? I mean, is she making the tea up there or something? Well,
and then he's like Bond-splaining
yeah,
half of the science to her.
She's an astronaut. And it's like, chill out, Bond. I think she knows what she's doing here.
Yeah.
I never quite understood. They never get that connection right between the two of them. It is not the Bond Anya of films gone by.
There's something about Lois Chiles too. Like, she has a very nonchalant sort of approach to the character, which at times I actually really like, where it's like she's kind of just so calm and cool under pressure. She doesn't really react to things. And I actually think that's an interesting character approach, but it's death when it comes to the playful banter and back and forth between the two of them.
Well, there's a scene where, like, I think, it's when he's in the rocket base and she's trapped in the room where the exhaust is, and he walks in and she goes, oh hi, James.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh my God, you're here, we can escape this. It's like, oh, hi.
Horrible things are going on. She's just like, oh yeah, we should go over there and do that. And you're like, okay. But I like the moments where it's more like in the hotel room when he's going through the gadgets that she has, the standard CIA gadgets that they give all the agents apparently. But she just is kind of like smiling and like, yeah, whatever. Like, it's not playing it big.
No.
It's almost a little too subtle for the movie she's in, but I like the moments where it works.
Yeah, and at least like Michael Lonsdale was playing it larger, comparatively.
There's the beat where he mentions the amusing death.
Yeah.
And I almost feel like that's acknowledging the absurdity of the movie.
Just a little bit. And I think I'll let you go last, Cam, because you did a lot of talking.
Please.
I think for me, I love the idea of Moonraker. I love the concept of it. I love the idea of Bond going to space. But every time I watch Moonraker, I realize I don't like the idea of Moonraker. And then I just have like time apart from it, and I come back and I go, oh, I should watch Moonraker again. I remember it being really fun. And I go back and I go, it's quite slow. And it's quite like not fun. Like, you could say a lot of things about Live and Let Die. There's criticism I'm sure you can make about that film, but it's fun. Like, it's intense, it's non-stop, and it's fun. And that's really what I look for with a lot of these films, especially the Roger Moore ones. And like, even go further forward, like Octopussy is nuts and practically indecipherable, but it's fun. And so you can forgive a lot of the sins. Moonraker, as a premise, should be fun. It isn't. And so I find myself sitting there with like my critic's hat on, which is the worst hat to wear, and I start picking problems with it, and like little, like, there's big things like the gondola and stuff like that. Of course you can point out the pigeon and all sorts of problems. Why the guy with the bottle of drinks there again? I don't know. Weird coincidence. But it just doesn't particularly work. I want to be like, oh, the greatness of Moonraker. It's the underrated Roger Moore film. But it's not. I think it deserves the bit of the slap around it gets from fans, because I think they tried to do too much, and they tried to follow a trend the wrong way. They didn't learn the lessons of what made Star Wars right and good and fun being the word, and they didn't inject that into this film. They thought they would go large and slapstick with stuff like Jaws falling into the circus, and that doesn't work. And then you've just got all this space stuff that's meant to be like awe-inspiring, but just is more nap-inspiring.
Yes. That's definitely something I noticed on the rewatches of this movie. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can't say I adore Moonraker. I like the idea of it.
Okay. Yeah. Rewatching it last night, it was interesting because I was watching it with my girlfriend. It was her first time ever seeing this. She's been doing the journey of first-time Bond watches. And so I'm always very excited to see how she reacts to specific Bond movies. Didn't care for this one. Actually requested a nap at the point of the space scenes, like a 5-10 minute nap, which makes sense to me. And then really just it turned to me at points and said, this isn't a Bond movie, this is Star Wars. And really just did not connect with it. I, on the other hand, found myself looking for things to admire in the movie, and what I appreciate about Moonraker is that the Bond investigation elements are actually pretty well honed, I think. Like the connecting the bread trail from how we get from the beginning of the film to the very end, and Bond investigating, the glass factory and all this sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
These are elements that are often incomprehensible in other Bond films. Whereas I felt like Moonraker, it's actually really clean in terms of following the trail of the story.
Well, there's a lot of shoe leather.
There's a lot of shoe leather, but I actually kind of appreciated the way that shoe leather did connect to action beats along the way.
Sure.
The problem is, like, Moonraker, and I talked about this when we did the live podcast episode.
Sure.
They basically looked at this film and said, what tone do you want? And they said, yes. It's all tones. It's the Looney Tunes sequence, which John mentioned off the top, of Jaws flapping his arms in the air, to a woman being torn to shreds by dogs in a, like, Hammer horror sequence. And
which, in a capsule, is a really good little sequence.
It's great. Yeah.
Like, it's a weird horror moment in the film, but as a piece of art, as a 2-hour and 5-minute film, it's just, you wonder why it's there.
It's bizarre, and you have, like, the Michael Lonsdale performance, who's like the world's driest villain in the silliest Bond movie ever. It's these odd comparisons between scenes that don't match up, but I did sort of appreciate that the investigative elements worked, that it was constantly punctuated with, if not all-time great Bond action sequences, at least fun or memorable action sequences.
Sure.
But when you look at the movie, it really is kind of a hodgepodge where I can sit there and pick out pieces I like. There are elements of the finale that are technically very impressive. The weightlessness, the approaching the station, sequences like that. But it also gets really dull. And that's where the, like, stupidity of the movie really begins to take over, where you have ponderous sci-fi elements with, like, Jaws and Dolly spinning away in a shattered remainder of a space station, and Bond saying, don't worry, they'll be okay. They're fine. It just gets very silly while at the same time dull.
Are we supposed to take it that Jaws and Dolly survived, by the way?
They did, yeah. They mentioned that in the control room.
Yeah, they said they picked him up.
Oh, yeah, of course. They do say that, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
There goes me drifting off at the end of the film again. Well, okay, it sounds like it's not the love fest that we had for The Spy Who Loved Me, and I think quite rightly. But let's do the bits that we like. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the positivity of Moonraker. John, I'll throw it back to you. What's something you want to champion about Moonraker? Something it does really well.
Well, the first thing I want to champion is a way of looking at the film that takes you out of James Bond and into sort of the English major, high level, let's look at this movie. So
Sure.
This is a movie that begins with James Bond being shoved out of a plane, something which, quite frankly, people don't survive. And Bond is plummeting. He is falling to earth. And let's say in this that we accept that this James Bond, actually pre No Time to Die, is not actually going to survive this. And the rest of the film is a surrealistic exploration of what is the fate of James Bond. He goes to Venice, death in Venice. famous story set there. A place noted for being a you know a sinking city with all the canals and everything like this.
Mhm.
So he goes there. Life is as fragile as glass, so he has the fight in the glass factory. He is literally trying to be killed by somebody who was in a coffin in Venice, right? So you've got all of this sort of like weird symbolism that you can go and interpret there. They go to Mardi Gras, the last big party before you're supposed to actually live a righteous life, right? In there. They go to the temples, the Mayan temples. I don't know why they call it the Aztec level in GoldenEye 64, whatever it is, but it's their Mayan temples in Tikal. They go there, and of course the whole plot is death. Of course, we're going to kill the human population on the planet, and then repopulate all the other mammals and plants are going to survive and repopulate it with this perfect race and everything, which Bond almost had seemed to be on a mission to do during all of his prior missions of copulating with the most beautiful women that are out there. And then the question is Bond going to end up in heaven, or is he going to end up in hell? Is he going to die in an inferno blast of these rockets, or is he going to ascend to the heavens and remain there suspended in heavenly bliss? And of course, at the end, he does. So I like the sort of English major ludicrous thing, which I'm sure nobody making the film ever thought about. But I do love the poetry of he starts by falling and he ends by being weightless. He's constantly, it is a heaven or hell bouncing back within the story that I doubt Christopher would ever thought of, but he's passed away, so we can't ask him. So we'll just say maybe he did. So I love that. I love the miniature work. I love the scale. I love the free fall fight until Jaws pulls the ripcord. I love the audacity of the film. That's the thing that I really have. You look at and you go like, well, damn it, you really tried to do something big here, didn't you? And I love that it's still connected with audiences in this massive way. Audiences that had not liked Bond films before. It brought little kids, so many people of that generation who were kids, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old. They came to Bond through Moonraker, that generation did. Everybody in America was going and seeing that movie all over Europe and stuff. So I love that it drew these people in there, on there. And I think Lois Chiles, I mean, she is damn easy on the eyes, but she had very little to work with that character.
Oh yeah,
Very little going on. She had a lot going on in her personal life where they were shooting that film. She had an illness in the family, and of course she couldn't fly home to Texas to go and check on everything. And she still, I think, turned in an incredibly charming and wonderful performance in there. I think a lot of the supporting actress performances, Corinne Cléry is just, absolutely lights up the screen when you see her there. I think there's a lot of fun stuff that goes on in that film. And then you look at that miniature work. Nobody's ever going to make a film like that again.
Yeah.
It's never going to happen. And you were looking at the best of the best there of what Derek Mettings could possibly pull off.
Yeah, you look at those shots of the shuttle, going around the Earth, absolutely beautiful. And I was talking to my girlfriend about that, right? Just said, if you see that sequence in any movie made nowadays, it's very clear CG. You just go, oh yeah, that's visual effect, that's computer effects. And there's a reality to what they achieved that's also dreamy looking.
Yeah, it is the pinnacle of analog filmmaking.
I kind of want to just go back to the English major interpretation. I don't think I'd ever analyzed Moonraker to that extent. I leave that sort of analysis to the professionals now yourself and people like David Lobergelis, who runs License to Queer, who can pull ideas out of Bond films I've never seen in my life. And I almost want to subscribe to that because I think I'd have a better time next time I watch it if I go at it as some sort of essay assignment and try and pick apart the ethics and morals of Moonraker.
You're too busy doing that with Condor Man.
Of course. I'm always revising my opinions on Condor Man.
That's right.
I also I'll chuck in my likes because a lot of them are similar. I think some of the set pieces in the film are fantastic. The skydiving is, I mean, if you're going to follow up The Spy Who Loved Me, that parachute, we had Rick Sylvester on to talk about that parachute jump. That was breathtaking, but so was the skydive. Few films could actually manage to, potentially to some people, one up The Spy Who Loved Me in terms of an intro. It's just a shame they don't stick the landing, if you apologize for that pun. I love the model work. I agree with that as well. Roger Moore is full charm mode.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I mean, I've never had the pleasure of meeting Roger Moore. John, you've spent time with him back in 1979 through to the more recent years before he passed away, and I'm sure you could tell us plenty of stories about the man. But I feel like this is Roger Moore at full beam. If you're driving a car, he's turning the headlights on full. You won't miss him. He is just like, at least you have him as your anchor, as your touchstone in these moments where you're like, why am I watching Kato from the Pink Panther films attack Bond?
That was actually Michael G. Wilson's instructor in martial arts.
Was it? Did he
it
also
was.
instruct him to attack him at random times around his house?
That's how they practiced.
Oh, Kato, no! Kato, stop! That has to be a Pink Panther thing, right? That's got to be a Kato reference.
Maybe.
It's not in the book.
There's almost nothing from the book.
I know. I'm just trying to pull a reason as to why this guy exists.
No, because Michael Wilson was studying Aikido, and he had this teacher there who was incredibly physical, and he was like, oh my God, this guy's got something here. I don't know enough about Toshirô Suga who played the part, but he doesn't, if you got to have a henchman,
Yeah,
he's not that bad. Yeah.
It's the glass factory scene for me that feels very much like a Pink Panther scene where they destroy Clouseau's house every time. It just feels exactly like that.
it does actually. I didn't actually think of that.
It's a stock scene. It's like the John Ford westerns where they would have the fights in the bars and all the glass gets broken. Or in the early 70s, there were always these scenes that would happen in bars with all of this glass all around, and they would just shatter the glass and shatter the glass. And the bigger the better. And they were like, okay, we're going to do one that is got more breakaway glass than anybody's ever made before for a scene. And that was it. And, is it a great scene? No, not really. But, it's you can watch it.
You do get that shot of like tiny Roger Moore head inside the bell glass, though, that I think is pretty priceless when he first walked into the room, and then sees the tour. He sees Dr. Goodhead across the room. Like, that shot will also live rent free in my mind.
Yeah, I think like there is something too, as you said, like the Pink Panther aspect of like destroying a room in an action scene, or sort of a comedic action scene, but also like Bruce Lee, a handful of years before this is like really popular. And so maybe there's a little bit of influence there as well.
Yeah, but I mean, you need scenes where James Bond is not shooting with somebody else, because those scenes are generally boring in Bond films. You want to come up with a new way that Bond is fighting and people can potentially die and things like this. It's it's a whole it's tough coming up with those scenes. It's a lot of work.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and the moment where Roger picks up the vase, the alarm goes off, he puts the vase down, and then the guy completely obliterates it. It's like, okay, that was a good setup and payoff there. For my I wanted to highlight is Michael Lonsdale. I think, again, a character that probably isn't given a lot to do. He's given some great lines, and I could see another actor completely whiffing it. He comes in as like the Leslie Nielsen approach of just playing it completely straight.
Yeah.
And it works every time. I mean, the see some harm comes to him is an all-timer, but the cucumber sandwich line is also, what was it? The only good British invention was afternoon tea or whatever it was. And I was like, well, oh yeah, we didn't invent the railways, but whatever. Who's counting, right? But I also hate cucumber sandwiches. Has anyone got an opinion on cucumber sandwiches?
I recently had a cucumber and peanut butter sandwich not too long ago.
Well, that's different. That can be quite tasty. What did you think of that?
I would like to say my girlfriend rebelled against it, but I'd have another one if that's what it was up for being served. I'd order it off the menu.
There you go. There you go. Cam?
I don't know if I've ever had one.
Well, next time you're in England, I'll get the white bread and the cucumbers out, and I'll make you a cucumber sandwich.
I've had cucumber sushi, but not
quite
sandwiches.
the same thing.
No.
You need some butter and white bread, and yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say about Lonsdale, though, like, he has all these lines. He delivers perfectly dry, right? Like, consistently throughout the course of the film. When you get to the one at the end, where he says, I don't remember the exact line, but you return with the inevitability of an unloved season, something like that. He cracks up when he says inevitability. Like, he actually, like, kind of has a, like, stifled giggle when he says it. And I can't tell if it's the actor just really amused by the line he's delivering, or if it's like the rare moment of Drax cracking in the film, which either way is really joyful to watch.
Which we will now call Draxing.
We will. But
Well,
Okay.
I want to ask you both, what is your unloved season?
in Vancouver, probably the fall.
Winter.
Yeah, or maybe winter.
I don't like being like I like autumn. I don't mind. Like I was just in autumn, Vancouver autumn. I'm in my autumn now. Don't mind, but like you give me -5 degrees in London where we barely have heating or air conditioning anywhere. Yeah, no thanks. Trains don't have it. It's just cold. What about you, John? What's your most unloved season?
I don't have an unloved season. I think the line is so incredibly like what is the inevitability of an unloved season? It's like what? Just like it's one of those lines that just sounds like word salad to me.
It feels like poetry for me. I think I'm back on that English major analysis.
That's the greatness of Michael Lonsdale.
Yeah.
Is he takes a line like that just an average actor would literally, on the day on the set, they would go like, "We this has to be fixed."
Yeah.
And he just makes that thing smooth as butter.
I mean, it's a lot of fun every time he's on screen, which I remember as a kid, I didn't really care for his performance very much. Like, I found him kind of boring in comparison to other Bond films.
Sure.
But more as an adult, every time he speaks, I'm just like, this is gold. Like, I wish more Bond villains, especially the ones that are in movies that aren't great. Like, think of Dominic Green in Quantum of Solace, right? Like,
I often do.
You kind of just go, yeah, you kind of like, okay, like, he has his moments, but like, what does he really contribute? I would love it if he had dialogue this flowery, because at least that would stick in my mind.
Yeah, it's one of the things I wish they had done with the Drax character, and you take 2 minutes off the glass factory scene, and you give him the point to where he explains how he came to the point of deciding that humanity had to be destroyed, and he wanted to create his perfect, ideal human race out there, and what that journey was.
Mm-hmm.
Because you construct a really good journey speech for him, and now you've got a character that people are going to go like, "Oh my God, this guy is completely freaking warped in the head," rather than it's just like, "Oh, well, this is my plan," on there. It's you get about just a little bit of that in The Spy Who Loved Me. You don't get enough of it, but that's what you want. What you want is that moment in Goldfinger, it's divine heaviness. I've always, I've always loved gold. I've always, any enterprise that will increase the value of my stock. It's just that obsession, and you just go like, right, this guy's got the bug bad. That's the kind of thing there where you're just like, oh yeah, now we understand what this guy is. What is it? It's the rat speech by Silva in Skyfall. You just want that thing that's gonna like make you hook into who that character is on there. And they just did not get around to writing that speech for Hugo Drax,
No, at least you have Stromberg talk about like the decadence of the Western world and wanting to end that. And you go, okay, not exactly a fully three-dimensional villain, but at least I understand his motivation. Whereas like Drax wanting to become basically like Space Hitler, I'm like, I don't really understand how he went from where he was to how he got to where he wants to go now. Like, I can understand someone who's just like, I want to create a perfect world because I am some sort of technological genius who redefines technology to perfection, but we never get any of that. So I'm just kind of like filling in gaps myself.
Well, why don't you bring us home, Cam? What was your big like?
I think actually Louis Gilbert and cinematographer Jean Tournier
Mhm.
deliver a lot of beauty in this movie. It's something that I think people don't really think about with Moonraker. They think of like the silliness or, the space scenes. And the space scenes are beautiful themselves, obviously, partly because of largely because of the work of Derek Meddings. But there are so many shots in this movie that you could hang on a wall. So look at like the big cavernous estate of Drax and the way it's framed. And when Bond walks in, like just the luxuriousness of it. It's just absolutely beautiful. Another moment I thought of was when you have that glass factory fight and Bond goes up into like the clock tower and it's all like shades of blue across the two actors as they're fighting. These are the kind of details that they could easily just skip over and just say, you know what, just shoot this as a fight scene and let's move on. But there is genuine effort to make this movie often look very beautiful, which is what makes moments like the ones John mentioned earlier, the shoddy back projection, the Jaws jumping across the cable cars, that much more jarring because so much of the movie looks absolutely incredible. Very few Bond movies make their locations look more beautiful than this movie, whether it's Venice or when they go to Brazil and you have Bond just walking through the jungle, trailing behind one of Drax's girls. You're like, this is beautifully filmed, footage in a movie that I think in the eyes of most Bond fans is not a movie they look to for like beautiful Bond cinematography.
I completely agree. And also, I'm glad you called out the clock tower sequence because I was watching this today when I was doing my revisit and I was surprised how much it reminded me of the Skyfall Shanghai fight in the sort of in top of the building.
Yeah.
And I'd never thought that was actually maybe a small reference to this in a little way, but like the colors and everything, it feels very purposeful now looking at it.
It's going the extra mile. And there's a lot of actually like silent filmmaking going on from Louis Gilbert where it's just, we don't need dialogue, just make this work. I think of the scene where Bond is using the telescope to kind of scope out the territory, and then he turns and it's looking at Dr. Goodhead. And the way they just interact, and it's all silent, and it just leads to their reunion. And like moments like that, a film that is less confident, this one's almost overly confident for what it's doing because a lot of it doesn't really hold together, but it's very confident at times, and it's moments like that that are what I really treasure in it.
I completely agree. I think it is almost a detriment to the film in a way because it would be easier if this film was ugly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
because then you could just dismiss it far easier than you should because there is a lot of good inside of Moonraker. There is great filmmaking going on. There's some good performances, lovely visuals, and so it's stuff like that despite my protestations, I still come back to this film.
Yeah, and the cinematographer Jean Tournier, worked on Day of the Jackal as well, another spy classic with Michael Lonsdale.
Any more from you, John? Anything you want to shout out for likes?
I think that there's just what you guys have said is I agree with all of it. Again, I just come back to the scale and scope of this film in there, and as you pointed out, the charm of Roger Moore in this film. I just think that's all stuff that should be looked at and remembered. And there is some joy to the score. I mean, we talked about the score being slow, but it does feel like it's a score being put in by somebody who knows, what note should follow next on there. And it's not Bond action music in a lot of places, although Barry does go back to the 007 theme, a sort of slower version of it. It slows down in kind of like every iteration that he does, but it's still got it's a very comforting score.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very mellow score, and it's one that I can put on in the background and when I'm doing stuff and I don't want something invading my head on there. So I like that quite a bit too.
I think it's lovely at times. I there are tracks I have on my sort of Bond music playlist that I have on shuffle sometimes. So it made it on there. And I'll also note that La La Land is just reissuing the full soundtrack now. I think in the coming months.
It's out. It is out.
Oh, is it out already?
The Moonraker score is out. It's got the Paul Williams versions of the title songs on it. It's got some music that is not, on the soundtrack album release. The soundtrack album I never thought was really beautifully put together or mastered.
Mm-hmm.
And the La La Land release, like all of their releases, is just fantastic. I mean, just I cannot say enough about how much I love those La La Land releases.
I think I want to leave us on this section with one final question to you, John, before we go to dislikes and start to bring it home. You spent time with Roger Moore doing the documentaries for the DVDs about Moonraker and other films. What was the sense you had from Roger about Moonraker? Was it one he was particularly fond of his Bond films?
Well, what I would say is for the interview that we did for the DVD releases, that was a producer who was working for me who conducted that interview in the south of France. I was too busy and I could not go over to conduct that interview.
Sure.
But for the audio commentaries, I did record those with him in Monaco. So that was a wonderful experience with him. And what I'd love to say about that is, I can tell you all sorts of things specifically of what I remember him saying about Moonraker. I cannot. I literally, I can remember some of the specific stories he told, but it was, 3 days that I got to spend with Roger Moore, recording those audio commentaries, and, had a great time with him. We'd go to lunch every day. He just couldn't have been nicer, more professional. He signed some posters I brought over there because I had the posters, and just was a wonderful, wonderful, charming guy. My sense on all of the films was that he really loved being Bond. He loved being part of that filmmaking family. He loved the way he was treated on those films. The press obligations was, a tremendous amount for actors on those films. Everybody wants a piece of you on there. But that for him, it was a great, great ride. He wasn't somebody who read the Bond novels. He literally read the beginning of Goldfinger, and I don't think he read any more than that. He read, and he was going to play the role his way. And I think there was, he worked his way through that, and he really found the character he wanted to play in The Spy Who Loved Me and Moonraker more than any of his other films. And I think Spy Who Loved Me was very much of his favorite, but with Moonraker, I think he had really found his stride and he was leaning into it. And whether the script was living up to what he could do and giving him something more to do, that's another question. But he certainly was playing, I think, the best of the Roger Moore Bond there.
I think the last I'll leave us on is it was nice to see that the second in command of the British submarine on the Liparus made it through being gunned down by Stromberg's goons and ended up flying for the RAF at the beginning of this film, only to be blown up by Drax's goons.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
Agents, we don't expect you to talk. We expect you to buy a subscription to our Patreon.
Yee. That's right. Over on the SpyHards Patreon, we're covering all your favorite spy TV shows, as well as popular films from the most iconic secret agent actors of all time.
Cam, why don't you share some intel on our latest assignment?
Well, Scott, as we enter the holiday season, what better way to give yourself a gift than by catching up with the November offerings over on the Patreon? We had class with our tribute to Robert Redford with reviews of Brubaker and Barefoot in the Park. Plus, we had some sass with the Ted Danson TV movie Once Upon a Spy, which is so unbelievably crazy you have to see it to believe it. So there's a lot to check out, and you should do it now.
So accept your mission and help support your favorite spy movie podcast at patreon.com/spyhards.
But before we activate the fourth protocol, let's get back to the spy jigs.
Okay, dislikes time. I mean, we've had some critiques already, so this probably will be quite quick, but let's go round the room. John, is there anything you want to sort of center in on as a particular dislike about Moonraker?
Wow. There's so much one can hate on with this film. and I've already mentioned the ripping out of the ripcord, the flapping of the arms in the pre-title sequence, which literally broke my heart when I saw it at the Rivoli Theater.
Yeah.
Thinking I'm seeing the best Bond film ever. Oh crap, on there. But I think that the entire ending on the space station, when you've seen 2001, the way the weightlessness is done there, so that you never get the sense somebody's hanging from wires and they're like, we did more people on wire work in a shot than anybody's ever done it. But it's very conventionally shot. Everybody's sort of bent at the waist a little bit. You can tell it's wire work. It's, you just, over and over there are things as the space station is being destroyed. And apparently that air is just not escaping. People are still just breathing away. But then it makes up for it. The firing on the globes thing at the end, it works. It's a good tense scene. It's fun. Yeah, I just, it's the triple take pigeon. I mean, it's just all of that stuff. Everybody knows what it is. It's the like, come on, just do one more draft of this script and let's make it make sense in some way. Give me some kind of logic.
Yeah, I wish I could give you that logic. But I don't think it's available.
The pigeon is a real choice because it's like, if you're going to have silly reactions in this movie, the guy, the waiter pouring the champagne or whatever it is on the guy's head, you're like, okay, like that's campy and silly, but I can understand in in the world how this might happen. The pigeon thing, it doesn't work. Like, it looks bad, but they still didn't think, you know what? Like, we like the idea, it didn't work, so let's just cut that. They stuck with it. They were really married to that bad pigeon, double, triple take or whatever it is.
Well, it feels like the whole slide whistle man with the golden gun thing. They thought they had a good idea and like, this works. Like, leave this in. And then everyone's like, don't. I wish you hadn't left that in.
But imagine when they tried to perform the slide whistle, they messed it up and couldn't actually perform the slide whistle. It was kind of a start-stop kind of, jarring thing. Like, that's the case with the pigeon. It doesn't actually work when you see it visually.
I think, like, I mean, I don't like the pigeon. I think we could all agree the pigeon is a bad move.
Yeah.
I think the pigeon is almost too infamous now. It goes beyond the problem of the farcity of this film. And it's just too comical that I almost wouldn't want it stripped out. Like, it's too infamous in a way.
Of course.
But if you were going to have another go at this, or you were going to go in a time machine and, string Lewis Gilbert up by his ankles and shake him a little bit until he does a better film, I might say cut the pigeon.
Yeah, but it goes so much further than that. You cut the entire gondola sequence.
Yeah.
There's no world in which somebody sends an assassin after James Bond who is in a coffin that is arrayed with all sorts of knife blades there.
Oh, there's too many yes and steps in that sequence. I mean, the fact that like James Bond is just riding around aimlessly on a gondola, not going anywhere, and then they happen to bump into him in the first place, and then the assault happens. It's not like they're like tracking him, and you see them tracking him, and then they attack him. It's just, oh shit, there's James Bond. Get your knives. And then they just start attacking him. And the whole thing is it's ludicrous. It is ludicrous.
Well, there's a way to have a light touch with the action scenes that when the movie's actually working, you kind of go along with it. Bond throwing the martial artist through the glass and him landing on a piano. You're like, okay, it's silly, but it's something that I can believe within this world. The problem with the gondola one is like, what is he doing? He's just like circling the square. This would be an incredibly easy thing for any bad guy to deal with.
Well, I think like at one point it was just let's have a fast-paced gondola chase.
Sure.
Kind of like the boat chase in Golden Gun.
Yeah.
Like there's a motor on the bottom of this little boat. That's odd. That's fun.
Yeah.
But they then yes-anded and added the next thing. Well, what if there's like a guy in a coffin from like Live and Let Die chasing after him? What if like Baron Samedi bloody comes back after him or something like that? And the whole idea of it being a coffin is ludicrous in itself. Like why are they doing the Live and Let Die sequence?
Well, they're really going far beyond what they need to. Like something that's silly but I think works is like the snake sequence where the women lure him across the bridge and he goes in. I'm like, okay, a little bit elaborate, but like it's a pretty good setup of like, having a giant python or anaconda, I'm not exactly sure what it was, wrap around him. I'm like, okay, it's silly, but it's fun, and I can buy into it within the world of this film. This is clearly the, Marvel Comics presents James Bond kind of movie.
Sure.
So I can go with that. But when I have the gondola thing, I'm like, picturing that even in a comic book frame, they're like, well, he's circling the square. What do we do with the next panel?
It's just some more circling.
It literally cuts from him circling the square to him at night in like the black uniform, looking actually very cool, throwing the hat down and, breaking into the facility. But it's like, well, how did we get from there? Like, was he going down, like driving through the entirety of Venice in that thing?
Like maybe he had to get across a point, and so he had to inflate it and then deflated it on the other end and got back out on the boat. Like,
yeah,
does that make more sense? I don't know, but
No.
I wouldn't have gone this far. It's Bond goes too far into outer space.
He does.
Yeah, but I mean, the outer space stuff is not the most ludicrous stuff in the film. That's the problem. Is if you were to do a recut of this film, you might have to put up a couple of title cards that say something like, "And now Bond was captured by Drax," and then you cut to Drax show in the control room. But you're going to take out the gondola in Venice, but you're also going to take out the Skyway gondolas in Rio de Janeiro, because that doesn't work.
No.
You're just going to keep going time after time, and you're going to keep losing major sequences because you can't make a good sequence out of them the way the film is constructed. The stuff in the ambulance works okay. I mean, it's a weirdly cheap looking set for the interior of the ambulance and everything, but you can sort of make a little bit of that scene work. But there's I don't know how you get out of the boat chase at Iguazu Falls. I mean, you can't just cut all the crap that doesn't work, because you need a voiceover to come in and just say like, and then, well, stuff happened, and now Bond is following a woman who's mysteriously walking through the Amazon jungle to Central America.
Speaking of that woman, check out our feed later this week for Urka Pachenko, as we're sitting down with that very woman.
Well, she is freak all gorgeous. You can just, I will have to say, worked for me.
I think there are millions of Bond fans that are nodding in agreement right now. I don't really know if I have much left to say, except for, and this might be a mild hot take, I wish Jaws wasn't in this film. I don't think it does him any favors. I think you have the mystique of Jaws is formed in The Spy Who Loved Me. He is kind of playful, but scary. Like the bit where he jumps out of the cupboard in the train is a genuine jump scare in a Bond film. He is able to get that reaction out of you. To the guy that falls into a circus tent, to the guy who ends up with Dolly, who we haven't really spoken about all that much. I understand.
So much to say.
So
much. Much.
They're both known for being very verbose.
Yes.
I don't think it did anything for the Jaws character. I mean, we didn't live in those times like we do now. Like, is this progressing a character? Like, I don't think Richard Kiel was like, what is this doing for the Jaws character? He was just more like, oh, okay, I get to play Jaws again. Cool. I don't want to wear the teeth, but sure.
They were looking at him like Loki when you bring him back. How do we expand on the character of Loki, for sure?
No, but I don't think it did the idea of Jaws any favors, apart from the fact it had just had him on screen for longer, and he was part of the jump, I guess, at the start. So he does have that.
I'll defend the sequence where he's dressed as the clown at Mardi Gras and like watching them down the alley. I actually think he's very scary there. Like there's some genuine horror movie filmmaking.
Sure.
I don't know what the point of the Manuela character is in the film, but her standing there and seeing him approach her, that's pretty effective. That's the Jaws I like, where there is menace to him. But there's very little menace here, and that's the problem.
Like, I also like the sort of use of him with Drax and pointing out that I don't think Jaws fits into his idea of like the perfect race. Like that's a good use of Jaws, and if you're going to turn him into a face instead of a heel, that's probably the way you do it. But I ultimately I would cut him out of the film completely. You could have another big henchman, big weighty guy or gal play someone who's trying to track down Bond, and you could just have a new character created.
I had a note. This movie, of course, like rips off a lot of Star Wars, right?
Sure.
That moment of Jaws having that, that realization that Drax is not going to be supporting him in the future was a real, like, them beating Star Wars to the punch with Darth Vader and the Emperor.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Right?
All
The
right.
Darth Vader realization, Jaws was there first.
I guess that means that Return of the Jedi is also science fact.
It is indeed, yes.
John, I want to ask you a Dolly question. You can put something to bed for us.
Yeah, go ahead.
Shakes his head.
I think he already knows the question and already has his answer chambered.
No,
What's the deal with this whole Mandela effect of the braces? So like the what do you call them in North America?
yeah, braces.
Braces.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Yeah.
I mean, you call braces suspenders, so I don't know what So it's
I thought I got the right word.
Yeah, you did. You
Yeah,
did.
fine.
So
Good.
I'm going to tell you right now, I saw Moonraker probably 10 times upon its initial release, maybe a few fewer. I'm not sure, but I saw it a lot because I was determined that anything that was James Bond was going to be great,
Sure.
even if I just had to like blind myself to certain things. And there's probably a certain point you would have asked me, did Dolly have braces? And I'd have gone, hell yeah. I mean, it's just that point where she smiles. You want the braces to have been there.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense.
Oh yeah. I mean, dramatically, it makes more sense than what they've got. If she had smiled with the braces, that would have been a great laugh within the theater there. But I don't know what the Mandela effect is fantastic. I love reading things on the Mandela effect and those little sort of online things where it'll say, is it this or is it this? And you go like, I can't remember,
So what you've done there, as a James Bond aficionado, I would classify you as someone who's a scholar in the field, is you've actually made it cloudier. You haven't settled the argument. You've actually put more doubt into people's minds.
What do you mean I haven't settled it? She does not have braces. Okay, so
Okay, fine.
there's no braces,
All right, fine.
in the scene. So my apologies there or whatever. But by God, I wish there had been braces.
Okay,
so
we'll take that.
Yeah.
I mean, as bad as the end of that sequence is, I mean, it's a great miniature with the gondola crashing through the tram station there, but it's the shot of Bond and Holly sliding down the wire. It's not good. The unbelievable drop that they're just going to be okay. The whole thing of like, oh, they can get that thing going so fast that it's going to come completely off of its cable and slam through. It just none of it. Just it's. I don't know what you do with that sequence.
I can't really defend that. I will say the funniest moment for like model work in this film for me is the boat going off the side of the waterfall and the little miniature jaws inside. It is just it's dreadful. I agree with your eye roll there, John. It's dreadful, but it's so funny. It's bad.
Yeah.
As great as Derek Mettings was, and the height of his work comes in this film, and also for me, some great stuff in GoldenEye. I mean, fantastic stuff in GoldenEye that's done, with some CGI, but mostly analog, and great miniature explosions, the destruction of the Severnaya station there. That's all Derek Mettings. But he also does some great work on Superman the movie. But he runs out of money. And so the dam break in Superman the movie looks terrible. And this is always the thing, it's like people see like, oh, this is a great shot. We'll throw this shot at him. We'll throw this shot at him. We'll solve the problem that we were going to do real of a boat going over the waterfall. We'll just have Derek Mettings build, I forget how high that waterfall was, but it was not a small miniature, but nobody could get the dummies looking right. They never could.
I can believe it. Cam, do you want to finish us off? Any dislikes you want to mention we haven't already spoken about?
Yeah, we've covered, I think, all the big ones. But one thing that did jump out to me was Bernard Lee gets great stuff. Desmond Llewelyn gets great stuff with the, I believe he's attempting re-entry. One of the great closing out Bond lines.
I mean, I have a question about that. We'll come back to that line. So, yeah,
sure.
go on.
But they both get moments that are very memorable. I think Lois Maxwell's really hung out to dry in this one.
Yeah.
She doesn't really get anything interesting whatsoever.
Yeah, there's not even a big witty banter scene between them. Like, she says he didn't do the dropping in thing, and then also doubts he did the other thing with the cable car, and that's about it.
Yeah, it's just kind of like she just smiles and just and you're like, okay, sure.
She got the real diamonds are forever treatment.
Yeah, and then the next film is when they bring in Penelope Smallbone.
Oh, is that this one?
To kind of take attention away from her. So it's almost like it feels a little bit of like this is the precursor of them saying, well, look at this movie. It is Roger Moore going after all these women in their 20s, basically.
Yeah.
And, Lois Maxwell's getting older, so let's give her less to do. That's what it feels like.
Yeah, I would agree. That is what it feels like. Final notes, then, the infamous knock list. I've got a note and then a question. Cam, have you got anything else?
I just had the question of which is more volatile, the exploding hotel in Quantum of Solace or the space station, which pretty much disintegrates after a couple of holes.
Like paper.
Yeah, like paper. Which one would you rather spend time in and feel safer in?
I mean, I don't really trust a vacuum of space, so I think I'll take the fire hotel in Quantum of Solace because they seem to survive for a little while. Although there doesn't seem to be any natural resources around that hotel.
You guys are both missing it here. Okay, the greatest place to be, of course, is going to be at Blofeld's headquarters in Spectre, because it just takes. He's got tons of armed guards all around there. And I've always wanted, I think there should be a deleted scene that's recreated by somebody out there where Blofeld is talking to the architect. And the architect says, well, of course, we're going to build protective structures around all this exterior piping. He's saying, no, that's going to be exposed. And the architect is saying, no, but you understand, you're going to have all these armed guards here. One loose bullet hitting one of these pipes will set off a chain reaction, which will blow up this entire place. Not an intentional shot necessarily even. I mean, just even it can be a random shot on one valve, and this entire place will blow up bigger than any explosion ever seen in a film before. So I'm going to have to say that one there. Space stations are not meant to last. They only had to be up there, a few weeks for the orchid poison to kill all of humanity, and then they go back down to Earth. They start repopulating.
True.
They're at it like bunny rabbits. I guess. Yeah. I think I'd rather live in Blofeld's lair in On Her Majesty's. Actually, I think I'll pick that.
That's a good
because
one.
I've got some medical problems. He can deal with that too at the same time. He can brainwash me, and yeah.
You two have problems with chicken.
I do have problems with chicken. I should be craving their flesh.
That's right.
Okay, my note and then my question. My note is, SpyHards podcast. We take a look at a lot of spy stuff, and one of the biggest issues I've ever seen in a Bond film is 007 being equipped with personalized Minox cameras.
Oh, yeah. That's very silly.
I'm pretty sure if he's captured, they might have an idea of what that is.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, not the best tradecraft there, 007. Try harder next time, Q department. You can do better. And the line that Cam just mentioned, my God, what's Bond doing? I think he's attempting re-entry, sir. Is that the greatest Bond one-liner of all time? I mean, it's not said by Bond, so there is that sort of caveat.
I mean, it's not the greatest Bond one-liner of all times. It's just the greatest, leading to that close moment there. That's there are a number of these sorts of is this any time to be rescued? But it also goes in with this amazingly gorgeous shot of Lois Chiles' Holly Goodhead saying, James, take me around the world one more time, which is a great double entendre in its own way. And it does end that film on a really good, strong high note after a good sequence with destroying the globes.
Yeah. And you had in Spy, the keeping the British end up, which was incredible. So to try to even raise the bar from that and arguably succeed is, definitely a feather in the cap of Moonraker.
It will never reach the highs of the men's choir of Nobody Does It Better.
Well, we got disco here. That's the trade-off.
We did get disco. We did get the disco theme. I think that is the superior theme. Disco fans, rise up. We're with you.
I had a question for the Brit in the room.
Is he a stiff ass Brit?
Well, it depends on the day. So the containers that Bond is carrying around of the poison that he hands off to M.
Sure.
How would you spell that?
I wouldn't call it a container.
No, what would you call it?
A vial.
Okay, and how do you spell that?
VIAL.
Okay, so this was where I was really confused. When I was watching the movie, I had actually on the subtitles for my girlfriend, and it spelled it in every single usage in the film, PHIAL. And I thought, maybe this is a British thing?
Apparently that is how it's spelled, according to Google.
Yes, it is. It is PHIAL.
Really?
So, IAL. Sorry, I can't.
Well, we all collectively learned something today. John maybe knew that already.
John
but I
knew.
certainly didn't.
I've been spelling it with a V my entire life.
I try to be kind to you guys. Michelle Clavel. Michelle Clavel does not show up in Fear Eyes Only. She shows up in Octopussy. So it's a whole film after Moonraker. So there's little things like that, and I just
Cam was wrong.
I was wrong too. Oh boy.
Hey, you asked me the question. File. There you go. I think in my science textbooks I definitely wrote VIAL. So I don't know. I got a C grade in science, so I don't know what that means. Spell harder next time.
My whole lifetime has been a lie.
Well, or has it been a phi? Okay, it's time for
Knotlist.
Knotlist.
Knotlist. The Knotlist.
Knotlist. You need to pick a side.
Yes, that's right. The Knotlist, the list of the best spy movies of all time. Why don't you remind the listeners, Cam, and our guest, some of the James Bond films that have made the cut so far?
Okay, of the Roger Moores, I think only The Spy Who Loved Me made it on.
Just James Bond. Ooh.
Yeah, and then within the rest of them, you had Dr. No, From Russia with Love, Goldfinger Thunderball, You Only Live Twice squeaked on there, On Her Majesty's, and then the Brosnan's Goldeneye was the only one that made it on.
And Casino Royale and Skyfall, I think.
That's right, yes.
It perhaps isn't the most discerning of lists. I think if you were to take a fine-tooth comb to it, you could probably get a couple of them out. But our mission is to figure out if Moonraker is making the list of the best spy movies of all time, and that is our aim. And John, you get the first vote.
And I make a very different argument. And it's your knock list. You guys get to decide, but I don't think of it as the best spy movies.
It's the essential.
I think it is the spy movies that you need to see to understand the genre.
You're right.
That if you were going to be an expert on spy movies, that if you watch all the films that are on the knock list, you should be able to come out of it and say, like, to speak in a learned fashion about these movies and about the whole arc of the spy genre. And under that circumstance, I think absolutely Moonraker is on that list. There is, is it a great espionage movie? No. Is it even a great movie? No. But it is the pinnacle of how over the top Bond could get. It is the one where you look at it. It's also a testament, as I said, to analog filmmaking. It is a film that if you're going to look and say, gee, what made Roger Moore a great Bond that was going to go through there? Well, I think you have to have The Spy Who Loved Me and Moonraker. You have to see where it was done absolutely the right way, and you have to also look at it and see where it's like, oh my God, they were trying to make essentially the same film with outer space in it, and you see where it like goes like, wow, that doesn't work as a movie, but it works it as a testament to what they were trying to get done.
It's interesting. It's interesting. Because
damn it, John.
Damn it, John. John, you have reminded me what the knock list is essentially about, and I thank you for that reminder. That's all I'm going to say. But that means we've got one yes, there's still 2 votes to go. Cameron, all eyes are on you. Or ears.
I'm back in Wrecking Crew territory.
I think you might be back in Wrecking Crew territory.
Yeah. I was curious, though, John, like, is there a Bond film you would not put on the knock list? Like, you'd say no. And I mean an Eon film, not like Never Say Never Again, perhaps.
Man, you just pulled my answer like right out from under me there.
I knew.
No, I think there are some Eon films that I would not put on the knock list of films that you don't need to see to truly like get what makes a Bond film great. I don't think The Man with the Golden Gun. If you've seen all the Bond films and not The Man with the Golden Gun, you're in. You'd be okay. I would argue. That Die Another Day, it doesn't need to, you don't have to see it. If you watch, GoldenEye, Tomorrow Never Dies, The World Is Not Enough, you've got enough Pierce Brosnan to be able to speak on it and how it works. I don't think you need to see, quite frankly, Spectre to understand. You may be a little confused when you watch No Time to Die, but you can get past that. But I'd say you really do need to see that opening shot from Spectre and probably the rest of the pre-title sequence. But the film as a whole, just I would tell anybody who loves James Bond and hasn't seen Spectre yet, if you're gonna watch it, you just have to understand Blofeld is not James Bond's sort of adoptive brother. Whatever the hell was going on, you have to just block this out of your mind. Because that just does not work for me in the world of Bond. So yeah, I think there are things you would take out of there, but and I think you could take A View to a Kill out, and you understand everything you need to know about Roger Moore's James Bond and who he was as James Bond. You don't need to see that fire truck chase ever.
No, that's true.
So
quite true there.
Yeah. So but I mean, with Moonraker, I mean, it's just the scale. And I think when you're talking about Bond, the films that really completely redefined and reordered the spy film genre, you're either making your Bond-esque film or you're trying to make your anti-Bond film. I mean, they are the template of what you're doing at that point. And you get to 1979, nobody's really making a bunch of spy films anymore. And it's like it's the disco era. It's still analog filmmaking. It's clinging on to something of the past as far as filmmaking techniques there. You talked about the silent filmmaking, storytelling techniques that were being used extensively throughout the film. They were very well aware that so much of the film's success was worldwide, not just in the English-speaking territories. So they wanted big, long sequences that required no dialogue, no need to understand what anybody was saying or read complicated subtitles on the screen when you're watching it. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of films out there that you don't need, but I think Moonraker, that's you need to see where they tried and failed on at least that kind of major scale to understand why Bond shifts and starts going back with For Your Eyes Only all the way on an arc that keeps on pretty steady until you're going to be getting to the Daniel Craig Bond films and a very, very different type of movie going on there.
No, that's very true. And the thing is, like, when you look at the Roger Moore films to come, and I have favorites in the films to come, so I'm not saying the films to come are disposable after Moonraker. But you can make the argument that maybe they aren't as essential as the earlier Roger Moore ones, which really define him as Bond. Whereas like later on, it's like, well, here's another Roger Moore Bond film. You may love it, you may not like it, but it's just another Roger Moore Bond film. And I look at like the influence of Moonraker, which, obviously has a huge impact on the second Austin Powers film. It's referenced in Kevin Smith made a reference that's not great nowadays, but with featuring Ben Affleck and Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back. Moonraker has a legacy, and we talked a lot about that with The Wrecking Crew, which is what got it on the list. And I do think, like, with Moonraker, it sort of shows the extravagance of Bond taken too far. And we didn't put Die Another Day on the knock list. You Only Live Twice is one that I think there's enough there. I wasn't a big fan of that movie, but I think it holds together enough as a classic Bond film that you're fine with it. You can let it go. But I think in terms of like campy Bond that goes big, I don't know that there's one that has the impact that Moonraker does, or that at the very least is like reasonably engaging to watch. I think some of the other ones are legitimately kind of, they get pretty tedious to even sit through, period.
Well, like Die Another Day is nobody's favorite film, and it is another version of Bond excess. But it is a worse film than Moonraker.
And let me say something else about Moonraker. When Moonraker came out, I'm going to tell you, there may not be a Bond film that in the United States of America got as consistently glowing reviews as Moonraker did.
Mm-hmm.
There is a review poster that was put out for Moonraker with review quotes from the top critics in the country.
I think that's on Cam's wall.
Yeah, I do have a Moonraker poster up. Yeah, and
With quotes
you know,
on
it's like, yeah. And Scott, you know, you and I are big Star Trek fans.
Mhm.
I don't think we regard Star Trek 4 as our favorite Star Trek film.
Nope.
The Whales one, for people that don't keep track of the numbers. But if you were to make a list of essential Star Trek films, I think you'd have to say that one.
And also ones that are beloved by non-fans. That's probably like number 2.
Yeah, like it may be number 1.
I think Star Trek 2009 would be number 1.
Sure,
yeah,
but
it'd be
like
number
they
2.
are essential in making that franchise a very big presence in the marketplace. And I think Moonraker, Bond was already huge, but Moonraker is like lifting that prestige level in terms of the eyes of the mainstream viewer even higher. So I'm conflicted, but in terms of like historical importance, in terms of influence, in terms of what it meant to the Bond franchise, the fact that they felt we need to pull back, we need to change what we're doing, I actually think this is a far more worthy inductee than like a Die Another Day, which obviously leads to Casino. I think this one, for whatever it is more confident in what it is than Die Another Day is.
So is that a yes?
I guess it's somewhat of a modest yes, yeah.
Modesty blessed us. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. 2 yeses. And as such, my vote doesn't count, which is a nice position to be in because it means I can have a little bit of fun with it. And I'm going to go with, I think I want to like cosmically balance the scales because there was a lot of criticisms about this film. And I think far more criticisms than we've levied at many of the knock list inductees. So I think on the scale, if anyone's keeping track on a spreadsheet somewhere, please send me that spreadsheet. I would love to read it. But I think I'm going to vote for no because it will still make the list, but it won't be a 100% stamp of approval, which I don't think Moonraker deserves.
It's like a Thunderball or a You Only Live Twice.
Yeah, I didn't like Thunderball. You didn't like You Only Live Twice as much. It was simple as that. So it's one of those, but 2 yeses and 1 no. John Cork once again sets the tone. The tastemaker of SpyHards podcast, the sommelier of James Bond films, has once again led us to a successful knock list entry. Moonraker is making the knock list against all odds. It has somehow landed in that circus tent and survived. It's making the list. The dossier on the film is complete and filed as classified. And well done, gents. We brought it home.
And we should note, of course, that John had the Viewmaster collection for Moonraker, completing our Viewmaster duology. We had previous guest had the, I think it was Spy Who Loved Me. With,
it was Mark
Scott
Altman,
Mantz.
Yeah. It was Mark Altman.
There was no Spy Who Loved Me Viewmaster. It was Live and Let Die, and there was Moonraker.
It was Live and Let Die. It was Mark Altman. I apologize.
Yes.
Yeah. Our good man from Inglorious Treksperts, Mark Altman, who is quite the New Yorker, so had a lot to say about Live and Let Die. Good review. Go listen to that if you can. But yeah, so I mean, I'll have to find a clip of the Viewmaster, I should say, and put that online. So like I did with Live and Let Die, there's probably because they did individual shots for those things, didn't they? That weren't seen by the film. It was like a photographer took those shots differently from the film. I think that's how it worked. They're not stills from the film; they're like photographer shots, right?
I would love to tell you I know the exact answer to that. I do not know the exact answer to that, but I do believe that it was a stereoscopic camera that they shot all of that every Viewmaster thing had to be shot with a stereoscopic camera, and there are differing ways of doing that. But I believe that all those were done with a stills photographer would stand by the camera, and when they would do a rehearsal or stage a moment from the scene there, but they weren't like completely individual shots that were totally separate.
Well, from Viewmaster to Bond Master, John Cork, you've done it again.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm always pleased to be here. Thank you for including me.
It's a pleasure. We're going to have a chat off air in a minute about your next film, because I think you've had an interesting ride so far with SpyHards podcast. I think film number 4 needs to be a joint decision.
I wanted to do The Spy Who Loved Me so badly, and then I listened to The Spy Who Loved Me. And what was the name of your guest again? I'm
Scott Mance.
I blocked his name. He was so good, and he was so perfect for The Spy Who Loved Me, and I just thought I hang my head in shame that I even was like feeling this sort of like, they said I could do any movie and just name your Bond, and then your Roger Moore Bond, and then it was like I was usurped by a very, very, very good person to have on there. So congratulations on an excellent Spy Who Loved Me episode.
Thank you. Scott Mance made it very easy. I guess the Scots are good podcasters.
Oh, geez.
Amen.
Hey, I got a supporter here, and it ain't Cam. No, John, we're your biggest fans, and the fact that you even say yes to come on the show is humbling to us. And I don't want to blow smoke up your ass, but you've done a lot of work for this.
Please do not blow anything up my ass.
I won't. At least not on air, anyway. Yeah,
Scott's attempting re-entry. Thank you.
And that is how we leave it. John Cork, thank you once again for being on SpyHards.
Thank you. Take care.
There you go, folks. Another Roger Moore Bond film in the bag. He has attempted re-entry once again.
He did not hit the chicken switch.
No, he never would. Old Roger. He'd never chicken out for us.
Never. And nor did we in putting Moonraker on the knock list.
I never thought we'd get here, Cam, but we did.
I never dreamed we'd be here, but we are indeed.
I think John Cork, and I want to thank John once again for coming on the show. We give him plenty of praise. He's a good chap, and I'm glad he supports the show. But he is a weird entity when it comes to the knock list. He has manipulated that list.
There is an anarchic energy to him that is infectious. And, the Wrecking Crew is the most famous example. At least it was. And so I can't wait to hear from all of you, your thoughts on Moonraker, making the list for the reasons we cited.
Yeah, I mean, we have a new mailbox, as I've mentioned before, mail@spyhards.com. Very official sounding. Let us know. Drop us a line. What do you think of our choice for the knock list and our reasons for it? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let's hear from you. Write to us. Let us know. But our Bond ride, the rocket, the Moonraker, doesn't end here. Cam, who are we talking to on Friday?
Yes, we are talking to Irka Bachenko, who played Drax's blonde beauty in the film, and for those that maybe don't remember, that is the woman that lured Roger Moore into the snake pit. But she pops up throughout the film, notably in Venice as well. And we're going to have all sorts of stories about the locations of Moonraker and just her experience on what is typically, for these projects, a whirlwind experience.
And, I actually wrote in to be in this film as Drax's bald beauty, but they never got back to me.
They're like, you're a little late. A little late.
I mean, technically, I was a little early. I wasn't even born. So,
wow.
I was ahead of the game. Yeah, but they said no. So there goes that story. But at least we get to hear from someone who was there. So I'm looking forward to our chat with her, which will be out Friday this week. So make sure you hit subscribe, and you can get that in your podcast feeds later this week. But the Moonraker mission doesn't quite end there.
No, it doesn't. As we mentioned in this episode, this was the final Bond film for Mr. Ken Adam. And we thought it would be nice to do a bit of a celebration of the work of Ken Adam. And we are joined on this journey by podcaster extraordinaire, Mr. Matt Gourley, he of the Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend podcast, as well as, of course, the James Bonding podcast. And so this is going to be a lot of fun. We're going to look at each of Ken Adams' Bond films, as well as some of his other greatest works, and break them all down to their bare elements and do a lot of dissection.
A lot of that sounds very academic, but don't forget we're sitting down with Matt Gourley.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he knows his way around a Bond film, clearly, from his James Bonding podcast, and we've been talking to him for what feels like years now to get him onto the show, so it's finally great to have Matt come and join us. It is a hilarious discussion, but we do pay a lot of love to Ken Adam as well. I suggest you all tune in for that. I may or may not make a few jokes at Cam's expense, but it wouldn't be a SpyHards episode if I didn't.
And if you want an analysis of the fish bed from Diamonds Are Forever, this is the episode to go to.
Boy, is it. So your mission, should you choose to accept it, folks, is to join us this Friday as we speak to Urka Bachenko, and then stay tuned as we fly into the stratosphere with Mr. Matt Gourley, celebrating the work of Ken Adam and his love of James Bond. You can, of course, follow us on social media at SpyHards. That's SpyHards. And if you can spare the change, it's coming up to Christmas. I understand things are tight out there, but if you have the little bit of money rolling around in your pocket, you can spend a couple of dollars a month to support the show over on Patreon, patreon.com/SpyHards. And if you want to spend the cost of about a coffee per month, you can get 3 bonus episodes in your feed. You can unlock our Christmas episodes. You can hear us talking about films like Die Hard 2 and Ghostbusters 2. A bit esoteric, but hey, they're Christmas films. So yeah, come and find out more, patreon.com/SpyHards, or you can find the links in the show notes below. But until next time, folks, you'll find me going door to door, town to town, county to county, country to country, continent to continent, planet to planet, spreading the gospel of Disco Moonraker superiority.